Welcome to Movie Oubliette, the film review podcast for movies that most people have mercifully forgotten.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Conrad, and in each episode, we drag a forsaken film out of the oubliette,
Discuss it and judge it to decide whether it should be set free
or whether it should be thrown back and consigned to oblivion forever. We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie oubliette.
Hello listeners, welcome to Movie Oubliette, episode 151, the Continental Connecting podcast with me, Dan, feeling the joys of sore legs due to cycling in Melbourne, Australia.
Oh, and me getting the bug for live shows in Cambridge, UK.
Yes, well, in this podcast, we discuss forgotten genre films, horror, sci-fi, and fantasy because we love dogs. Vicious, 7-foot-tall, standing, intestine-ripping, blood-splattering dogs. Hello, Conrad.
My favourite. I love those.
It's the best breed. So, the concert bug.
Yes, I really enjoyed my visit to the O2 in London to see Keane.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I'm desperate to go back again now. It's a really impressive venue, actually. I had no idea how large it was.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Any, like, I don't know, theatrics, like lights and fireworks or anything? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, no, the light show, and then they have that thing where they blow off, like, these massive cannons of little bits of tissue paper in the air for the climax of one of the songs.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's a really great atmosphere in there. 20,000 people all singing at once. It's a great way to spend an evening. Isn't it? I haven't really done it before.
Oh, really? Have you not seen many live shows of bands?
Not of bands. I've been to see Tori Amos an awful lot and a lot of film music, but they tend to be sort of sit down, appreciate and clap sort of shows rather than singing at the top of your voice with 20,000 people.
Ah, right, yeah.
That's really good fun. I was very hoarse the next day.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, I used to go to a lot of live shows, like a lot.
Yeah.
Like pretty much growing up in New Zealand, we didn't get many, so I would go to everything that came. And I went to a lot of big day outs, which is it's like a 1-day music festival in New Zealand. It's no longer a thing, but you'd see like 20 bands in one day. Like I saw, I've seen a lot of bands. I haven't been to that many live shows in Australia, but I mean, some pretty good ones. I saw Radiohead. I've seen Neil Young.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a few big ones, but yeah, it is fun. I do enjoy it.
Yeah. So the next one I've managed to book myself in for is they're going to do a live rendition of Jeff Wayne's musical version of The War of the Worlds.
Okay.
Which
there's a musical version of that?
There is, yeah. I think it was probably more of a phenomenon in the UK than anywhere else in the world, but I love that. It was like a late 70s concept album.
Okay.
And narrated by Richard Burton with a whole host of musical stars.
Wow. Okay.
Singing sort of pop rock songs in a musical form.
Strange.
It's fascinating.
It's so strange.
They're doing it live. I don't know who the lineup is. It's probably a whole bunch of X Factor rejects.
Yeah, wow.
I thought it would be fun. And they always put up this massive sort of alien tripod in the center of the stage. And yeah, it should be good fun.
Okay, yeah. My only exposure to War of the Worlds is the Tom Cruise movie. That's it. I haven't seen the original movie. I haven't heard the radio drama. It's terrible. I know.
That is terrible. Yeah, you're missing some good stuff there.
I know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess, Conrad, let's get on to the mailbag. What have our listeners been saying?
Well, we heard from Steve, who visited the location from Jabberwocky, Pembroke Castle.
Oh, wow.
And it's really cool. He wrote to us to say that he'd mentioned recently he had an upcoming trip to Pembrokeshire, and he went to Pembroke Castle. It was excellent, steeped in history. But I'll admit that as the tour guide took us through the centuries of bloody activity there, my mind was completely preoccupied with thoughts that I was treading in the same spot as Palin and Gilliam during the production of Jabberwocky. I've even managed to match a few shots to bore you with, and he sent through several shot-by-shot comparisons, and he's bang on.
Wow.
They're really good. I'll send them to you.
Yeah.
Also of interest, there is an actual oubliette there, and he sent us a photograph of the oubliette.
That's amazing.
In 1440, poor sod John Whithorn spent 7 years in it and went blind from the lack of light and malnutrition.
Jeez. Wow.
Good grief. Thanks again for an excellent podcast. I watched the film in the late 80s, but yet again your Ace Pod brings these films back to life and sparks new interest.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's really great. No, it was really good to see all the pictures. I'll send them to you. I think any listener that sends us an actual photo of an oubliette is like a gold star.
Yes. Yes.
We also heard from Serge of Cold Crash Pictures. Hello, Serge.
Hello, Serge.
He says, I've started and stopped Happiness of the Katakuris 3 times in the last 3 days, and I just can't dial in. I listened to Movie Oubliette's latest episode about it, which helps give it much needed context. But I don't think I'm going to try again until I'm in a more experimental mood.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone.
It's not, no. It left him cold. I mean, I admire his determination to try it again at some point. But I have to say, had I not needed to watch it for the pod, I think I would have pressed the eject button myself.
I wouldn't have. I would have strived through.
Yeah. But thank you everyone for writing, especially Steve with his photographs of oubliettes. We do love hearing from
Steve.
you.
Yes. Okay, on to the episode today. Conrad, let's get into it.
Yes. I'll just scamper on over to the oubliette and find out what we have. Oh, it's a rather quaint cottage in here.
Oh, what's that noise?
I don't know, there's something outside. Seems rather keen to get in.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this. There's a sword in here.
Maybe fend them off with that.
I'll just swing it about. Ah, lovely.
Oh, it looks heavy.
Every farmhouse should have a sword.
Oh, yes.
Oh, there's a film here too. I'll bring that.
Okay.
Hey, I expect nothing less than gratuitous violence from the lot of you.
Oh,
Yeah, you warded off the hounds. What do you have?
I think so. So today I have with me Dog Soldiers, the 2002 British action horror film directed and edited by Neil Marshall in his feature directorial debut, written by Neil Marshall as well, and starring Sean Pertwee, Kevin McKidd, Emma Cleesby, Liam Cunningham, Darren Morfitt, Chris Robson and Leslie Simpson.
Ooh, yes. And what happens in this movie?
Well, after failing his final SAS recruitment test by refusing the sinister Captain Ryan's order to shoot an innocent dog, Private Cooper is sent on a training exercise with a 6-man squad in the Scottish Highlands. The squaddies spend the night trading ghost stories, moaning about missing the footy, and roasting a dead cow that falls from the sky. The morning after, they discover the bloody remains of an SAS unit and its lone survivor, none other than sinister Captain Ryan, and soon come under attack from monstrous wolfman figures in the woods. Rescued by a passing zoologist called Megan, the group take refuge in a seemingly abandoned farmhouse where they come under siege by waves of attack from ravenous beasts outside. But why did the squad find a hidden tracking device in their radio? Why are their wounded team members healing faster than normal? And will the cute sheepdog they found in the cottage survive until the end? Find out after the break.
Yeah. All right.
And we're back to talk about a British movie from 2002.
Yes.
And werewolves, no less.
Yeah, I hadn't seen this movie. I think, is this the second werewolf movie that we've covered on the podcast?
It is, yeah.
After Ginger Snaps?
Well, there's Wolfen, which is sort of werewolf adjacent.
Kind of.
Not really.
Yeah, not really. No, I'd never seen this movie. Had you seen it?
I had seen it, yeah. It was quite a big thing in the UK when it was released. Certainly on the DVD market, I would say it was popular.
Right. Yeah. Did you watch it when it came out in 2002?
When it came out on DVD, yeah. So I guess it would be the year after. I didn't see it theatrically.
Right.
I don't think it was around in theatres. It was never released theatrically in the US.
Wow. Interesting.
No, it wasn't. It went straight to DVD in November of 2002. But in the UK, it was released in May 2002, where it placed third behind About a Boy, a Hugh Grant rom-com.
I love that movie, but yes.
Yes, me too. A baby Nicholas Hoult in that, who would then be in Renfield.
Yeah. Tony Collette in that, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. And number 2, Panic Room, David Fincher's thriller with Jodie Foster and a very young Kristen Stewart.
Ah, right. Yeah.
So came third, slipped to 5 the week later after the release of Star Wars Episode 2, and then sort of slid out.
Right.
But it made about $2.9 million by the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, not disastrous, but not a huge smash.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different in terms of a werewolf movie because it's a squad of trained army guys.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just like a bunch of different normal people. It's not like a farmhand and an accountant and a housewife and that sort of thing. It's a collection of fully armed professionals against a pack of werewolves. Not one werewolf, a pack of them. And so it is very much like a war movie. Like, it's very tactical, it's very strategic. It's like a siege film for the most part as well. It is very different to most, like, every werewolf movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, Neil Marshall talks about that usually werewolf movies focus on the curse aspect. So it's usually focusing on a character who is turned into a werewolf and then you go through his experience.
That's right.
And that's been used as, an allegory for adolescence, like Ginger Snaps, which did the gender flip on us rather than American Werewolf in London, which is very focused on a man's experience, or Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox.
That's right.
But this, all it uses the werewolves for is just an antagonist for a besieged squad. It's one of those sort of Lost Patrol type movies where soldiers suddenly find themselves up against zombies or werewolves or whatever. So it's one of those movies.
I did find it very similar to a lot of zombie movies, like Night of the Living Dead or even Undead that we saw fairly recently.
All right, yeah.
In a farmhouse fending off the hordes of whatever, in this case werewolves. But again, these are professionals, so they're not freaking out as much. There's not as much screaming and hysteria.
No.
They're trained for this, and they don't really make mistakes like you normally see in similar movies.
No. Well, there are a few hilarious mistakes at the beginning, which we might get to in the Mobley Awards.
Oh, yes.
But no, on the whole, it's very much a film for British soldiers. The director on the commentary, Neil Marshall, talks about wanting to make a film that shows a very, or as much as he could possibly make it, an accurate portrayal of British military, British squaddies with their black humour and getting on with it sort of attitude, which is, has a different flavour to it to all the US Marine-based movies that we've seen. It has to be said, the spectre of aliens looms fairly large over this movie.
Ah, yes. Yeah, sure.
I noted a lot of similarities. You have the sole survivor of the original attack says that soldiers and their weaponry won't make any difference, although in this case it's Captain Ryan rather than Newt. Cooper's squad has been set up by a shadowy organisation that regards them as expendable. Soldiers, after escaping their first first brush with the monsters are rescued by a woman driving a utility vehicle. So that sort of casts Megan as Ripley. And when they're escaping, one of the monsters is on the roof and punches through and attacks them. Short controlled bursts. Somebody shouts out at one point talking about the guns. And there's a lot of scenes, individual shots, even lines. And it makes you realize just how monumental, how much of a influential genre classic 1986's Aliens really is.
Yeah. I mean, I did hear that Neil Marshall was referencing a lot of movies in this movie, like a lot of other movies, not even werewolf movies.
No.
There is a line in it, because one of the characters is called Spoon, and he disappears, and one of the characters says, "Where's Spoon?" And then they find the watch that he was wearing in just like a pile of guts on the floor. And the character just says, "There is no spoon." And I thought, is that a Matrix reference? And it definitely was.
Yeah, it definitely is, but not deliberate. A lot of people accuse the filmmakers of deliberately calling a character Witherspoons so that he can have the nickname Spoon and they could come up with that line.
Yeah.
But it literally was, they got to the point where he disappeared and somebody asked the question, "Where's Spoon?" And then it occurred to them that they can make this gag. So.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it wasn't intentional from the start.
No, it wasn't set up that way. It just turned up as an opportunity that they just couldn't let go, really.
Right, yeah. I mean, like, talking about the werewolves, it's pretty good effects. It's all practical, which is amazing.
Yes.
So there's no CGI. And I don't know, I'm at conflict with what Neil Marshall has said. So he said that he wanted to develop werewolves that were better than other werewolf movies. So he compared the werewolf in American Werewolf in London as being naff, which I don't think it is, but okay.
Good grief, no.
And but he loved the werewolf in The Howling, but he said that you never see it. So he wanted a good werewolf from The Howling that you see, which, I mean, it's not terrible. It's not a terrible werewolf special effects, but I do find you don't see them that much. The edits are so fast that you only really catch glimpses or silhouettes. There's a few close-ups, but not really. There are some scenes where you see the size of them, which was amazing, like quite astounding how tall they were. They're not as bulky as other werewolf movies, and they're much taller. They stand higher, and they're sort of more lanky even.
Yeah, so they're dancers rather than stunt people inside the suits. And they're also, to get that different leg configuration that dogs have, they're on stilts so that they can have that bit at the bottom that sort of comes forward rather than... Anyway, so they are sort of 6 inches up and they're very, very tall dancers in the first place. And then he built the cottage set, which most of the film, like the second and third acts, are all in this cottage under siege. He built the sets with the ceilings deliberately lower than perhaps they would normally be.
They make them look taller.
Yeah, so that they are literally sort of brushing against the ceiling or stooping down or sort of lurching over.
Yeah.
So he does make them quite statuesque, and there are some beautiful shots where you just briefly see them sort of standing up in rooms and think, good grief, look at the size of that thing. But he cuts. But I don't agree with that statement either. I mean, I think everybody loves American Werewolf in London, probably principally for the transformation sequence.
Yes, yeah.
But even, I mean, I guess he's on all fours when he's attacking people or on the rampage, and you don't get to see him an awful lot for obvious reasons. I think it's a guy on a trolley being pushed around.
I mean, there's that one scene where he's walking on the streets of London. And it's very brightly lit.
Yeah.
Like, I was quite amazed at what they achieved with that. You don't see that in werewolf movies, like full brightly lit werewolf on a exposed street. Normally it's shadows and, like, you want to hide the fact that it's just a guy in a suit.
Yeah. My favourite shot of it in American Werewolf in London is in the London Underground, where the guy it's an overhead shot and the guy is collapsed on the escalators slowly being pulled upwards.
Yeah.
And you just see it suddenly walk out from underneath the tunnel and it just keeps going, and then just cuts before you get to the back of it, because obviously then you'd see all the wires and goodness knows what else.
Right. Yeah.
But it's really chilling, that shot. It's really good. So yeah, that one's all on all fours. The Howling, you get to see all of it standing up quite often, I think, because it's Robert Picardo who does that first transformation.
Right,
so
yeah,
it's quite similar to this in terms of screen time, I'd say.
Yeah, because I was a bit frustrated by the just constant cutting. I just wanted to see a full face-on werewolf. And you do, but that's still not quite enough. And I did feel like there wasn't much in terms of animatronics with the face movement.
No,
but then
it's
you
true.
watch it behind the scenes and there kind of is. Like the lips move, the ears move, the eyes move. Like there was a lot going on. Like I think Bob Keane did the creature design and it looks good behind the scenes. But in the movie itself, I think they cut too much. I think they were too scared to really show it just in case it came across as, not realistic. The design of the face as well was very wolf-like, less werewolf-like and more a wolf. Like it did look more animal-looking rather than sort of this fantastical beast.
Yeah. No, I like the designs a lot. I mean, I think they're very elegant looking, oddly enough.
It's interesting you said they were dancers, because it does remind me of the Hello that we did with the monsters, and they were also dancers in there. And I believe the zombies in Resident Evil, the second one, were dancers as well. So yeah, dancers have interesting movements that are great for creature design.
Yeah, I think they are. And it does give you a different spin, because usually it's just stunt guys being very muscular and brutal and efficient in their movements, which again would work, but this gives it a different spin, I think.
Yeah, and there's a decent amount of gore as well. I mean, just a lot of spraying of blood. So often cutting away or cutting to a wall and then you see the blood splatter. But I think there's one scene where one of the werewolves like bites off the head of one of the characters and like throws it onto a vehicle.
Yes.
And you don't see quite enough, but it's pretty gory. There's like buckets of blood.
Yeah, there's just enough of it. It's certainly enough. If you're a gorehound who loves really good kills, I think this won't disappoint. He did excise one of them. I think Spoons originally have a really brutal ending.
Oh, wow.
But it came after he'd delivered quite a funny one-liner.
Yeah.
So tonally just did not work.
Yeah.
So he cut it out.
Yeah,
so all you find is the leftovers of what happens to Spoons.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the practical effects of this movie, really impressive. And it gave it quite an 80s feel to it. And also because it's filmed on film, right? So it's not digital.
No.
And that also feels very 80s as well.
It does, yeah. And it's filmed on Super 16mm to save on money, because their budget was only about 2.3 million pounds.
Oh, wow,
so it wasn't huge, but by today's standards, large for a low budget horror movie.
Right.
Unless you're Blumhouse or something like that. But
yeah.
they use Super 16 for that reason, but it also gives the film quite a gritty edge. I watched the 4K remaster of it that was released recently in the UK by Second Sight, and it looks amazing, but you can definitely see the grain level in it is higher than you would get on 35. But yeah, it does give it that sort of late 70s, early 80s werewolf movie vibe.
It does.
Except for the way that it's edited. That's the one difference.
So we have covered Neil Marshall before, his movie Doomsday, and it did feel quite similar in terms of editing. I mean, Doomsday is intolerable, but this is not as bad.
No.
But it is a little frustrating at times where you just don't even know what is going on because there's so many cuts and just also camera movement as well. There's just so much camera movement, lots of shaky cam, lots of just unnecessary movement where you've got like a shot of people getting out of a helicopter and you've got this camera just kind of sliding around unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And often with the character's not in frame properly as well. They're just kind of like to the left.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like,
I found it frustrating at the beginning, at that, particularly that scene. It's trying to inject it with a sense of energy and interest. But actually, if you just held the damn thing still in that setting, because it's a beautiful setting, and just let the characters talk, I would have been fine with it. I wouldn't have been bored at all, because it moves along at a good pace. It's 104 minutes, and it keeps your interest. I think it sags maybe a little bit towards the middle, just because we are trapped in one location under siege sort of 2 or 3 times, and you think, oh, you're kind of just showing me the same thing again and again and again.
Yeah, sure.
So, but it's tricky with those claustrophobic movies.
Yeah.
It was only really that beginning scene where you were trying to establish characters and get some dialogue out, and the camera's flying all over the place and cutting every 2 seconds, that I was annoyed. For the main action of the movie, I was fine. I just accepted it as like a stylistic choice, and I still got enough information about what was happening.
Yeah, there were a few scenes where I wasn't sure who was doing what. Yeah, because there's just so many cuts. But yeah, the action scenes were standouts for me. The scene where Megan rescues them, and the camera work on there's like dialogue while they're driving, and the camera work is like flying everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, why? Like, we're past the action, but we don't need this like movement with the camera. But yeah, it did really remind me of Doomsday. Doomsday is much, much worse though. Much worse.
Doomsday is this on steroids, and he recognized some stylistic choices that he needed to dial back, perhaps.
Yeah. Another movie I did find this film similar to was The Descent as well. So instead of a platoon of army guys, you've got a group of spelunkers, I guess, going into a cave. So it has the same sort of camaraderie. And also, instead of a bunch of girls going into a cave, it's just a bunch of guys going into the forest. So it does have that sort of, I guess, mateship between all the characters, and everyone knows each other quite well. There's no annoying characters, which was amazing. Like, apart from Ryan, who is supposed to be the villain, you're supposed to hate him, but everyone else is actually quite lovable, and it's sad when they start getting killed off.
It is, yeah. I mean, you've got Private Joe Kirkley, who's just complaining about the fact he's missing the football all the time, and he's probably the closest you get to an irritating character. I have to say, I couldn't tell the difference between Terry and Spoon. They looked very similar, so I couldn't
they're all dressed the same. They're all white guys. It was hard. It was very hard. Like, the only characters that were recognizable were Cooper, the main guy, sort of the lead, the injured sergeant that used to be the sort of commanding officer, and then Ryan, who I was like, where have I seen this actor before? Liam Cunningham. And of course, he's from Game of Thrones.
Right.
He's Davos from Game of Thrones. His voice is so iconic. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Also, the character Megan, obviously only female. And then, all the other characters didn't know who was who.
No, it's just a bunch of British squaddies with dark hair. It's very difficult to tell which one is which and who has died from one scene to the next.
I mean, I did want to ask though, there is a range of accents. Can you tell me, like, where is everyone from?
All over the place, but they are very representative of the class system that you have inbuilt in the British Army. So it's a lot of people from the north. So you'll have people from Newcastle and from Liverpool and from Birmingham. Obviously, Private Cooper, Kevin McKidd, is Scottish.
Okay.
And then you've got the dastardly Captain Ryan, who's officer class, who's very, very clipped English, Southern English. So he's from the private school and went straight up into captain, probably, So so there's that class dynamic in there.
And Sarge, is that Cockney?
He's Cockney. So that's Sean Pertwee, who is, of course, the son of the late, great Doctor Who actor John Pertwee.
Ah, wow, yeah.
As soon as you know, you can see it.
Okay.
He's from London. Salt of the earth.
Yeah, right, yeah. And also the actress that plays Megan, Emma Cleesby, she was great. She's really great character. Like, she's not screaming, you know, she's not losing her shit. Like, she's really confident. She can handle a gun, like, really well. Nice, refreshing female sort of character in this movie.
Yes, although there is a twist to that, of course.
Yes, there's a reason she's not screaming.
There is a reason she's not frightened of werewolves. Spoilers, she is one, which I'm not quite sure what that was about. There are a lot of sort of twists in the movie that I'm not really sure how they deepen or enrich the movie or pay off. So you have this revelation that she knows Captain Ryan because she was part of his first reconnoiter of this area in the Highlands, that there have been werewolf sightings in, and surprise, surprise, the military want to capture a werewolf for military purposes or research. I don't know. It's not really made clear.
Yeah.
But she was their zoologist expert that accompanied them. But I don't know what that does, really, for the plot. It goes nowhere once you find out.
Yeah, I was a bit confused. Like, it works as a twist, but when you really break it down, like, why was she helping them in the first place? Like, why wasn't she just letting them get eaten by a werewolf? Like, she shoots a werewolf at one stage.
Yeah.
And so is she... Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. So they go to this farmhouse. It's been recently vacated. The food is still on the stove. Like, there were people there a minute ago.
Yeah.
And then it turns out, surprise, surprise, the werewolves are the people that live in the farmhouse.
Yes.
Is she also part of the family, or did she get turned into a werewolf by the family?
I would say the latter, because she's not Scottish. And I think the local family, they're called the Youths, which I think is Gaelic for horror.
Okay.
And I think that family is a family of werewolves that keep picking off tourists every now and again.
Right.
And
so she got turned.
I think she got turned when she was with Captain Ryan's squad the first time. She says something about, I came here to be at one with nature and I got more than I bargained for, or something along those lines.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I'm not sure what her agenda is. If she's toying with them, she says something about, I thought you were my one way out of here. So I don't know if she's trying to leave the area.
I don't know.
Can't she just go?
Yeah. Or was that just a manipulation?
I don't know.
There's certain scenes as well where she gets injured and she looks at the injuries like, I don't know, there's like some sort of meaning behind it.
Yeah.
Like, what was the point of that? When she cuts herself and she looks at it as if, oh, shit, what does that mean?
But the only thing I can think of is that she knows it's going to heal much faster than it should do and might give her away, but I don't know.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
She shouldn't really be bothered.
Yeah, I did want to ask as well. So we get a few characters turn into werewolves. So Ryan eventually turns into a werewolf, and then Sarge as well starts turning.
Yeah.
How are people turning into werewolves? So is it from a bite? Is it from a scratch? Is it just a blood transmission? Like what? How?
I think it is, yeah. Any and all of those. Yeah, anybody that seems to be scratched or bitten, sort of zombie style, seems to turn.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be teeth. Like it doesn't have to be a bite. It can be a scratch. It can be anything.
It appears so. I'm not sure how consistent that is in werewolf lore, but they certainly seem to be going for bites and scratches, because I think Sarge is only scratched, but he still turns, albeit slower perhaps.
Yeah.
It's a bit disappointing in the case of Megan, because there is this underlying story about Private Cooper, the main character. Aside from his backstory of having failed to get into the SAS and pass Captain Ryan's test, and therefore he's sort of his nemesis, there's also this backstory about him being recently separated from a girlfriend who's broken his heart or something.
Yeah.
And there are these occasional comments about women. At one point, they're asking all of them, what's the thing that scares you the most? And I think he says women. And then when she turns into a werewolf, Megan, she's saying these lines about, oh, women are all evil or something, and I'm the worst of all because I'll kill you or something. I don't know. There's a bit of a slice of if not exactly misogyny, but sort of, the old can't understand women stuff running through it.
Yeah.
It's not very well developed, but for that, I think it's almost worse because it's kind of casually painting women as monstrous in some way. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't want to excuse it, but yeah, different time,
Yeah,
maybe.
of course.
But I also found the deleted scenes way worse.
Really?
They really talked down to women in those. And I'm glad they were cut out because it may have made the movie hard to watch. So I think they trimmed it. I think it was much worse.
Yeah, and in fairness to Neil Marshall, I think he is trying to depict the average British squaddy, and it's not the most forward-thinking, progressive group of people.
No.
You get a bunch of working-class guys together in difficult circumstances, and, some of the things that they say are not going to be great.
No. Talking about this movie being British, I loved the wit.
Yes.
The dialogue's great in this movie.
Yes.
There's a lot of good lines, really quotable. Reminded me a lot of Guy Ritchie movies, like very Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, like very fast, witty, lots of slang, colloquialisms, lots of very British sayings.
Yeah.
Like bone.
Yes.
Which I've never heard in a conversation
No,
before.
me
so
neither.
it's good to get the definition spelled out. Yeah, I don't think this movie would have worked as an American film. I think it's very British, and that's why it works.
Yeah, it's distinctive. I do wonder on the DVD whether the subtitles were turned on a lot when it was watched in the US.
Oh,
because I don't know, some of the accents and some of the phraseology might have foxed them a bit. I do wonder that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's very similar to Australian, New Zealand sort of slang. There's a few things that I was like, oh, okay. I never heard that before.
Yeah. It's interesting you make the Guy Ritchie connection because Neil Marshall used to make Super 8 movies with a guy he refers to as Mike Johnson, but he's actually credited as Michael Robert Johnson when he was the screenwriter of Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes movie in 2009.
Oh, wow.
So there is a connection there. So it's kind of I don't know, it's a cultural thing. If you're going to show working class British guys being wisecracky with each other, it's going to have that flavour to it, I think.
Yeah. Again, it did kind of remind me of Undead as well. So just a lot of quotable dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, I really loved it. And all throughout the movie as well. And even the sort of more reflective moments where they were just sitting around a campfire and talking and telling, scary stories and stuff. That was really great. Like, really, really good dialogue scenes.
Yeah.
Which you don't get in a horror movie about werewolves.
No, and I think it's a testament to Neil Marshall working on the script for 16 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
From the moment that he first got the idea to the moment that he actually had the funds and the deal all put together for him to make it.
Yeah.
It took a long time and he went through multiple drafts. So it's kind of like, when a band first hits with their debut album, it's full of bangers because it's essentially their greatest hits of their entire creative life up until that point. And making a second album is harder. So I think it's
so hard,
even more credit to Neil Marshall that he pulled it off because
Yeah.
The Descent is probably his best movie to date.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Also with the characters and the Britishness, like the army guys were very convincing. Like it felt like they were a squad of close-knit sort of military men. It felt very authentic. And I think Neil said, I'm making a soldier movie with werewolves, not a werewolf movie with soldiers.
Yeah.
So he really wanted the soldier aspect of it to be as genuine as possible. And the werewolf part was secondary, even though, it's still important.
Yeah, they're just antagonists. You could literally lift them out and turn them into aliens or zombies or whatever. It would still be the same movie. It's window dressing around what he was really trying to make, which is a good Lost Patrol British movie in a fantastical genre.
Yeah.
I think he's particularly proud of the fact that this was a popular movie amongst servicemen. He talks about it being something that was on frequent rotation in Afghanistan in Iraq during tours in those
Yeah.
campaigns. So, yeah, he's proud of that. He knows that there's probably dozens of mistakes and technical errors in there that make soldiers wince or laugh. But
Yeah.
I think he got a lot of it right. I think certainly the tone of it, the feel of it seems right. As an army kid myself, it feels very authentic.
There was mention of it being compared or like sort of influenced by Zulu. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't, no.
haven't.
It's Michael Caine, isn't it? 60s?
Yeah, I see it at thrift stores all the time. I've
Yeah.
never picked it up, but maybe I should.
Yeah, it's one of those classics that you feel like you should watch at some point.
Yeah.
Like Spartacus, which I still haven't
Yeah.
seen.
Oh, right. Yeah, I haven't seen Spartacus. Yeah, the Zulu thing, though, is still like, it makes me reluctant because obviously, colonialism is
Yeah.
great.
It's cheering the wrong side, let's be honest. It's not great.
Exactly. So, yeah, maybe one day, maybe one rainy Sunday or something, I'll watch it.
Yeah, that's definitely an of its time type of movie.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
it's laced with commentary. I somehow doubt it.
Now it's time for random trivia.
So, Dan, what fabulous piece of trivia did you find in a skeleton-filled closet today?
Well, I read this on IMDb, so I hope it's true. So please confirm if it's true if you've read it somewhere else. But the scene where Sarge is getting his guts super glued back in. He's like sculling on a bottle of whiskey or something. And he gets Cooper to knock him out because he's in so much pain. So the first punch is a stage punch by Kevin McKidd. Then the character asks him to punch him again. So he punches him again, and it's a bit misjudged. And he does actually catch him on the nose.
Oh, no.
But the actor that played Sarge, Sean Pertwee, didn't feel it because he was actually drunk in that scene.
Oh.
So, yeah, real booze in that bottle, and yeah, a bit too much. That wasn't acting. That was real drunk.
Okay, well, fair enough. May as well use it if it works.
Yeah, exactly. It's authentic.
Yeah, I heard that part was improvised to a certain degree,
Ah,
but it
right,
wasn't
yeah.
in the script. The old punch me again, it wasn't hard enough.
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
So, and that's our trivia.
Let's talk about the music. It's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's terrible. It is a bit generic. You've got it's classic orchestral strings, brass percussion. There are some moments I did love, though. There's one scene where they enter the farmhouse for the first time, and it's very atmospheric synths, I think.
Yeah.
Like really great. Really good sort of horror cue. And there is the use of Claire de Lune at one point, which I think is the cheesiest piece of music by Claude Debussy. That's just in everything. Like I looked it up, and it's in Everything Everywhere All at Once, sort of most recent. Ocean's 11, Twilight, Atonement, Giant, Frankie and Johnny, 7 Years in Tibet, The Right Stuff. So it's overused for sure. But I did notice the French translation of Claire de Lune is Moonlight,
Yes.
which is very appropriate for this movie.
It's a bit on the nose, yeah. She sits down at the piano and plays not Moonlight Sonata, which would have been obvious, but she plays Claire de Lune, and then the wolves howl outside as we pan to the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's a werewolf. I don't know. Yeah, it's a bit much, isn't it?
Yeah. It is a bit much. But I mean, what were your thoughts on the music?
Yeah, I quite liked it. Mark Thomas is the composer. He's a Welsh composer, and he has won an Emmy Award for his music for the TV series Episodes. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've seen bits of it. It's a Matt LeBlanc one.
That's right. With
the woman from Black Books. I can't remember her name. She plays Fran in Black Books. Black Books is like my favorite TV show of all time.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good show. It's very meta and self-aware.
It is, yeah. That's Tamsin Greig.
That's right. That's right.
I love her from Green Wing as well. She's wonderful.
Oh, yes. Green Wing is an odd show.
It is, yeah. I do love it. It's been resurrected as a podcast on Audible recently, if you're interested.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But Mark Thomas as a composer for this, I think It's very bombastic. It's very forward. It's very grandiose. Very not typical of the 2000s. I think the 2000s was going much more towards the Hans Zimmer stripped back, repetitive, with much more synthesizer integration.
Yes. That's true.
Whereas this is quite grand and forward in the mix a lot of the time, but it does have some sort of atmospheric and touching moments. One of the main themes is sort of a doomed soldier piece for the Sarge and his very affectionate relationship with Cooper. So yeah, it's got some variation in there. I quite enjoyed it, but yeah, it does sound like somebody trying to do big Hollywood movie on a budget.
Yes.
Although it is orchestral, but it does sound like orchestral on a budget.
Yeah. I mean, at least it doesn't sound like plugins.
No.
Like it doesn't sound like a VST or anything.
No.
It does still sounds live, just like you can obviously hear it's not a big orchestra.
No, it's not. But I mean, in terms of, taking a unique instrumental or stylistic approach to a horror movie, no, not at all. It's by the numbers pretty much.
Yeah, but I do applaud the fact that Neil Marshall is going for a filmmaking style, both sonically and visually, that isn't 2002.
Yes.
Like if he was really going 2002, he would go electronic, and that would have probably killed the movie.
Yeah, it definitely would have done. So all credit to him for holding out for an orchestral score and getting something that's probably been tracked with Aliens, I think. Sometimes I can feel similar rhythms and patterns.
Right.
But yeah, it's good stuff. It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of obvious, I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
One interesting thing about this movie is there's a final boy.
Yes.
Not a final girl.
I know.
Interesting.
That's why I'm kind of disappointed that Megan is revealed as a sort of a last-minute villain for no reason that doesn't have any emotional or thematic significance.
Yeah.
And even if it does, it's sort of a disappointing one. So yeah, there's no Ripley from Megan. We're focusing on Cooper instead.
Yeah, but I kind of like that. I think it would have been cheesy if she ended up not being a werewolf and they both survive and then they kiss.
Oh,
and
God,
then
yeah.
We've got the cliche, romantic pair at the end. Like, I think that would have been worse. So I kind of like the way that it went.
Yeah, I mean, the closest that you get to a romance in this is Cooper and Sarge.
Yeah.
Sarge does at one point declare his love for Cooper, and Megan does say, "Shall I leave you two alone?" And at one point later in the movie, I did enjoy the fact that they end up squirreled away in a closet together that's full of skeletons.
That's right.
There isn't an awful lot of homoerotica to enjoy in this movie, but I enjoyed that undercurrent in that scene for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it was very much, brothers in arms rather than anything romantic. So it was quite nice to have an action movie with no undercurrent of romance at all.
Yeah, it was.
And Cooper was a good character, I thought. I liked him.
I liked Cooper, yeah. I mean, he wasn't completely flawless. He wasn't one of those guys that just seems invincible. But yeah, I kind of wanted a little bit more sort of conflict between him and Ryan as well because of the opening scene with their sort of encounter together and shooting the dog, which is awful. But there wasn't really. I felt like Ryan could have been a bigger character maybe.
Yeah, he does get a final showdown with Ryan in werewolf form.
That's true.
With Chekhov's sword thrust through him. I did wonder why the hell there's a sword in a farmhouse, but lo and behold, it does have a function. And the dog survives. I do want to point that out.
The dog does survive.
I want to give the movie and Neil Marshall bonus points for that, because not only does it survive, it has a thematic payoff. So Ryan tries to force Cooper to shoot an innocent dog at the beginning of the movie. He refuses.
Yeah.
Ryan shoots the dog. And then at the end of the movie, the cute little dog that they find in the farmhouse, who presumably coexists with werewolves if the family is a family of werewolves. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But he proves to be pivotal in Ryan's downfall. So doggy. I can't remember what the dog's name is. Sam, isn't it?
I think it was Sam the dog.
Yeah, Sam the dog. Go Sam. I was really pleased about that. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. I thought the silver little dagger thing. So at the very start of the movie, there are these campers, and one is gifted a little silver dagger or letter opener. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But that shows up right at the end because Cooper uses it to stab Ryan, and it is solid silver. So I guess the myths are true about silver and werewolves. That they do kill them. I thought that was a very unexpected payoff.
Yeah.
That was almost like, what? How did this even get here?
Yes.
But I think it's because I've read somewhere that it's because the werewolves, they're hunting all of these hikers and they're killing them, but they're also storing them in their basement as this kind of like slaughterhouse meat fridge, I guess.
Yeah.
And one of the corpses is the camper from the beginning.
Yeah.
Who had the silver dagger thing. Interesting as well. It means that the farmhouse people, the werewolves, they're eating the meat. So the stew that the guys eat when they first enter the farmhouse is presumably human flesh.
It is, yeah. Spoon says it's tastes like pork, but it's not.
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, my God.
No, the stew is people. That's not great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
He does throw it up later all over Ryan, doesn't he? So...
That's right. Yeah. It doesn't sit very well.
It does not, no. But yeah, the other thing I was going to mention about that camper scene right at the very beginning, it's actually quite frightening.
It is, yeah.
I think the thing that scares me about it the most is it's not scored. Mm-hmm. And the wife who gets pulled out of the tent and savaged to death, she's not screaming.
Yeah.
They're just struggling to stop this from happening. Mm-hmm. It's not sort of screamy. It's just sort of, I don't know, there's something so brutal and realist about it that I found quite shocking for an opening scene.
I always say, like, if you want to make something more brutal and visceral, don't score it.
Yeah.
Don't put music, because it's much more horrifying when you just hear the sounds of what's going on.
Yeah. No, I was really impressed with that. As a tone setter, that one was quite the slap in the face, and you don't see a werewolf at all during that.
No.
And interesting that one of Neil Marshall's ideas for a sequel for this movie was to continue the story of the camper.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so he was going to have the male character in the opening scene as having survived.
Right.
And him and Cooper ending up in a psychiatric hospital with the camper saying, I'm going to turn into a werewolf by the time of the next full moon.
Yeah.
And Cooper tried to convince everyone that he's right, and the clock ticking in this enclosed environment.
Oh, wow.
And then werewolf rampage.
That would have been great.
Yeah.
That would have been really, really interesting.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that, but nope, didn't happen.
Yeah, it does make sense because the actor that plays the camper, Craig Conway, is in like subsequent Neil Marshall movies. So he's in The Descent as one of the cave creatures. And he's also in Doomsday as well. So
yeah,
he used him in other movies.
Yeah, I think Neil Marshall has a bit of an acting troupe that follows him around, certainly in his early movies.
Yeah, because Emma Cleesby is also in Doomsday as well. So yeah. Utilizing his regulars.
Yeah, why not?
Coming to you live from the movie Oubliette Theatre, it's the prestigious Mobley Awards.
Hello, it's everyone's favourite part of the podcast, the Mobley Awards, where we nominate our favourite primal howling parts of the film in a number of head-severing and gut-spilling categories.
Best quote.
I imagine there are going to be a lot of favourite quotes in this movie, but...
Yeah, there's a lot.
If I had to pick one, I would go for something from Harry Wells, Sean Pertwee, and it's early on in the film, and it's when he's giving his team a pep talk, and he says, I expect nothing less than gratuitous violence from the lot of you. And I thought, as a mission statement for the movie, I think that's great.
Yeah. It delivers for sure.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. My favourite quote is the definition of bone. So one of the characters says, this is bone, in which Megan asks, what does bone mean? And then someone replies, bone, bollocks, naff, not very good. Which is, great. I needed the definition. I did, because I never heard that saying before.
Yeah, you almost need one of those movies where sort of footnotes appear at the bottom sometimes, just sort of explaining some of the terminology.
Best hair or costume?
For me, my favourite was the floppy-eared hat that Megan is sporting when she turns up to rescue them.
Oh, yes.
It's very practical for the cold Scottish winters. It's called a Sherpa hat, a trapper, or a ushanka.
Oh, okay.
In Russia.
Right.
I might be pronouncing that wrong, but yeah, there you go.
Must be
Distinctive
warm.
hat.
Yes. My costume that I'd like to point out is also from Megan. It's when shit gets serious, she strips down to a white singlet. Because that's what a strong female character in an action movie must always do, strip down to a tight singlet top, because I've noticed that's also what Sarah Connor does. It's what Rona Mitra does in Doomsday. Tomb Raider is another character that does it. Mila Jovovich in Resident Evil. Like it's the attire of the action female,
Certainly for that decade, that's very noughties, isn't it? Action chick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most naughty moment.
Well, I would say a second resurgence of werewolves, because IMDb lists 51 werewolf-related movies in the 80s, which doesn't surprise me, but there were 62 in the noughties.
Really?
Including, yes, Ginger Snaps from 2000, and then you've got Underworld 03, Van Helsing in 04, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban in 04, Brothers Grimm, Cursed, the Wes Craven movie, which really was a cursed text. That'd be an interesting one to look at. Another British film called Wild Country that's often mentioned in the same breath as Dog Soldiers, although it's not as widely seen, so it might be worth checking out. It's on Amazon Prime if anybody wants to check it out. Skinwalkers, Trick or Treat, of course, Michael Dougherty's film, has a good werewolf segment in it with a bit of a twist that's fun.
Okay.
And of course you've got Twilight, New Moon, Werewolves A Go-Go, love triangles with werewolves.
For me, the most naughty thing about this movie is the shaky cam. Just so much movement with the camera, just everywhere. It is such a naughties thing.
Yeah.
Favorite scene?
I thought all the action scenes would stand out, but one I did want to point out, because we haven't talked about it, is the lighting of the barn scene. So they hatch this plan where they think all the werewolves are in the barn for some reason, because it's sheltered and warm. So they rig up this vehicle, they puncture the fuel tank, and so all this petrol is just pouring out of it, and then they drive it into the barn. So now you've got one of the army guys at the house trying to light this this fuel trail with a match that's just not lighting whatsoever, and you've got Cooper
of course
sprinting back from the barn. It's just really tense, and the score under it it's just snare drum. I think it's just one drum just drumming away, which is really interesting choice. And then to save the day, Sarge comes flying out with a flaming Molotov that he smashes on the ground, and then the fire trail goes towards the barn, and then big explosion. It's just such a standout action scene. Really tense, really greatly, really interestingly scored. Some slow-mo as well, so it really heightens the suspense. And I thought a very well executed scene.
Yeah, that's a really good pick, actually, because it's another great example where they slightly change the location, which keeps it interesting when it's mostly been a siege movie up until that point, whereas that's where they go on the offensive.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Favorite scene for you?
For me, it's the first siege of the cottage, which I think is another
I loved it too.
Really great sequence, very much like John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13. And just there's this one particular moment I like. It's either Spoons or Terry. I'm not sure which. He's in the hallway between the front door and the back door of the farmhouse. And I love that when he looks the other way because he hears the door rattling behind you, which in the sound design actually does play behind you for surround sound, which is really fun. As he looks away, you can see through the glass in the door behind him, one of the werewolves peeks in for a moment and then disappears again, and he misses it. It's just lots of little moments like that are just so beautifully designed, both spatially and sound design. I thought, this is good. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
Most cliche moment.
I was actually going to pick the cheesy black and white POV shots for the werewolves.
Yes.
Didn't we have the same thing in Wolfen? No, it was some horrible digitized thing.
In Wolfen, it was much worse because didn't they flip it as well? So it was like inverted black and white or something. Yeah. It was ugly.
Supposed to like infrared or something.
In this, at least it was just straight black and white, which is fine.
It's fine. It's playing on, I think, the old theory that dogs can only see in black and white, which is not actually true.
Yes. No, it's not true. It's kind of muted colours they can see.
It is, yeah. Apparently they lack red and green, the cones that can differentiate between red and green. So they are red and green colorblind dogs, but they have more rods in their eyes, so they can see in the dark much better than we can. Okay. But yeah, if you want to give your dog a really attractive toy, give them a yellow or blue one because they can't really see red or green.
Yeah.
Best special effect.
For me, the best special effect is that moment when you get the first full body shot of a werewolf and he or she stands up and just fills the entire height of the room. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just stunning and in a bodily configuration that is not obviously human. So you just look at it and wow, it's weird.
Yeah, I loved that. Yeah, I thought the creature design was, when you saw it, when you did see it, was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I really liked that shot. I think it was great.
Yeah.
Favorite sound effect.
I think we might pick the same one, but what was yours?
Okay, surely there's only one noise that gets everybody sort of clenching and trying to force themselves back in their chair in horror, and that is the moment when the wolf version of Captain Ryan pushes the sword that's been impaled through him forcibly into Cooper's teeth, and you get this ceramic scraping, squeaking noise, and it just makes you go, every part of me is now clenched in horror.
Yeah, it's excruciating. They picked the right noise for that scene. Oh, it is. It's grating. You really feel that.
Oh yeah.
Most funniest moment.
For me, by far the funniest moment in the film, and I'm not sure it's supposed to be, is when a soldier in the very first encounter with the werewolves is so panicked that he manages to run with such force that he impales himself on a tree branch that's as thick as a coffee mug by several feet. Yeah. Which is, I mean, that either he was going at supersonic speeds or his body's made out of jello. I don't know how he got on that branch. Yeah. It's amazing. But he looked down at himself and I just burst into hysterics because I thought it was ridiculous.
I had questions like, how is it physically possible? And I did find it an odd scene.
It's very peculiar, and that character's name, although it's not mentioned in the film, I don't think, is Corporal Bruce Campbell.
Yes. And I think Sarge, his full name is Harry G. Wells, so H.G. Wells.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's quite another loving homage in the movie there.
The funniest moment I would like to point out is a dialogue scene between Sarge and Coop. And they're discussing about how Sarge is becoming a werewolf, and he says, maybe it's like when you need to take a piss or something. I don't know. When you gotta go, you gotta fucking go. And then Cooper responds with, well, maybe it's more like needing a shite. Just because you need one doesn't mean you dropped your kegs and pinch one off.
It's just Shakespeare, isn't it? It's beautiful dialogue.
It's amazing. Like, who wrote that? Neil Marshall, bravo. I love it.
And that's our Moblies.
Yes, that's our Moblies.
Hi, I'm Bernard Rose, the director of Paper House, and you're listening to Movie Oubliette.
Okay, it's time for the final verdicts. Should Dog Soldiers from 2002 be set free from the depths to howl under the moonlight, have an all-you-can-eat buffet on unsuspected hikers and be celebrated, or should it be impaled with a medieval sword and plunge back into the oubliette and become a long-forgotten local myth? Conrad, you'd seen Dog Soldiers before. Does it hold up today?
Well, it's very much not the sort of film that I would naturally gravitate towards. It's very blokey. Neil Marshall said that it was deliberately made to be the sort of movie that you'd watch after you've been in the pub all night, and I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
It's very much a British soldier movie, which is nice because you see a lot of American soldiers in movies. Very authentic. And, it's a pretty good, low-budget, fun, action-packed movie. It's got some of that early aughts irritating camera work and editing, but not too much to be distracting. It really punches above its weight in terms of its action sequences. Some of the characterization is disappointing, especially what they do with Megan. Don't know what the point of that was. But I love the main characters. I love the witty repartee. And although it's not really a classic for the ages, but it's a good fun watch with a lot of creativity and ingenuity thrown in. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I think people are more familiar with The Descent. I think people perhaps are not as familiar with this, especially in the US.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend it to them.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's an amazing first effort movie. Like, this is astounding what he's able to achieve on such a low budget. And the care and creativity with the dialogue is so stand out to me in a film like this, which should be campy and trashy, which it is at the same time. But you're really cheering on the characters. You don't want anyone to die.
No,
and yes,
true.
I guess it is a bit blokey, but it doesn't go too far, which is good.
Yeah.
Action scenes can be a little bit like too many edits, but it achieves so much. This movie achieves so much. And I would say I'm putting it in my top 5 in terms of favorite werewolf movies. Really enjoyed this movie. Really loved the British wit and comedy. It's great. It's just a really well-rounded movie, and I would put it up there with Undead in terms of first efforts. Like, it's so impressive what was achieved. And 100% gotta watch this movie if you haven't watched it. It's a really great take on werewolves with army guys. Like, wow. Who would have thought that would work?
Yeah, no, it works really well, and I think that's probably why it works, because it's a fun take on a familiar genre.
It is, yeah. Okay, and what do our patrons think?
Well, Hal, are you ready?
Yes, Conrad.
Okay, patrons vote, please.
Great news, they set it free.
Oh, yes. I'm not surprised. Yes. Surely no one would hate this movie.
Well, there are some. It wasn't unanimous.
Okay.
Yeah. 83% for, 17% against. Eddie Coulter said, "Let the dog soldiers out of the oubliette kennel." Neil Marshall's career hit the ground running with this gem and wow, does it deliver the goods. Kick back with some popcorn and a beer and watch the werewolf carnage unfold. Jasmine says, I saw this movie when it first came out, and ever since I've been so anxiously awaiting to say, throw this steaming sack of dingy, dull, doggy doo-doo right back in the oubliette where it belongs. I know darn well that won't happen, as I will be in the minuscule minority, but wow, it felt really good to say that sentence. Which is, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Very fair enough.
Of course.
James Salzberg says, let that wolf roam free and whip out the DPM camo.
Okay.
I found this one flipping channels on cable. It was my first time seeing Sean Pertwee, and I didn't even need to look it up to see his name. So much of his dad in his eyes.
Oh.
Yeah, very true. Film aficionado said, presumably the title Testosterone versus Werewolves was too verbose and on the nose.
Okay.
Or snout. But I suppose Dog Soldiers is acceptable. I have a lot of fond memories watching this one on DVD back in college. I'm pleased to report that it's still an intestine gluing good time.
Yes.
Release it, take it for a good walk, but be sure to muzzle it before it eats any more Scots. But finally, Wicked Person said, bin it. Bucket loads of tediously interminable sound and fury signifying nothing. The most predictable twist ever. Hi, I'm here with a truck to rescue you from all of the werewolves. I myself am definitely not going to turn into a werewolf.
Yeah, I did think that.
It's very, very true.
The twist
It's
was,
very true.
it was pretty visible from a mile away.
Yeah, but on the whole, everyone wants to set it free,
Okay.
apart from a handful of detractors. So here we go, Dog Soldiers. Let me let the leash off.
Oh,
Off you go.
run away. Oh, okay, Conrad. What's happening next episode? What movie will we be checking out?
Well, we did something fun this time. We asked all of our patrons to vote on a selection of films that they had nominated in the past.
Ah, yes.
And they had a really good time doing this and talking about which ones were their favourites.
Oh, yes.
But in reverse order, they came out as, in joint third place, we had The Hidden and Pumpkinhead, both very good choices.
Yeah.
In very close second, we had The Frighteners from Peter Jackson from 1992.
Love that movie.
Yeah. But coming out on top with the most votes, it was the 1979 American science fiction film, The Black Hole.
Oh, is this another Disney movie?
It's another dark Disney era movie, yeah. From 1979, directed by Gary Nelson and starring Maximilian Schell, Robert Forster, Joseph Bottoms, Yvette Mimieux, Anthony Perkins, and Ernest Borgnine.
Right. I have seen this movie, but I don't remember it at all. So,
Wow.
yeah. It will be really interesting to revisit.
Yeah, well, this will be a childhood nostalgia one for me, so get
okay.
the jingle ready.
Will do. Okay, listeners, if you do want to keep up to date with our recent episodes, you can follow us on all platforms as Movie Oubliette, and you can email us directly at movie.oubliette@gmail.com.
And if you would like to nominate films to feature in future episodes and get access to exclusive extended portions of the show, head on over to Patreon, where you can get on board for as little as $1. But for $5, you get bonus monthly minisodes, and for $10, you can be an executive producer like Chazilla, Eddie Coulter, Isaac Sutton, Dr. Doggy, Serge, Iconographer, and Ryan A. Potter.
Really, really appreciate the support. You can find merchandise on Redbubble, and we have a YouTube channel. And if you haven't already, give us a rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you're listening to us on. It does help us spread the word. And, get us some more listeners.
Always need those.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for another episode, Conrad.
Yep. Bye for now.
Goodbye.
Walkies.
Movie, 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 movie. others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie Oubliette.
I hope I give you the shits, you fucking wimp.